Hello, dear friends. There is a mosaic of news that points in the same direction. The dragon has begun to play hardball in his year, reinforced by Pluto in Aquarius. If you can stay calm in the middle of the storm, you will have won, won a prize. Opinion piece. Spectacular year. Economic turbulence. Gold rush on Wall Street. A huge storm is expected. Robert Kiyosaki versus Warren Buffett. Germany plans an economic rescue. Predictions of the Siberian shaman Kolya. Saudi Arabia and Russia will cut their oil production. Let's start. In the middle of global economic turbulence, the Bank of America has issued a warning about the possible collapse of the dollar and warns that the economy faces a spectacular year in 2024. According to Business Sousa, uncontrolled debt could lead to a financial disaster that would wreak havoc across the world. The BRICS and other developing countries are worried that a dollar debt could collapse their native economies. The BRICS will develop a blockchain-based payment system to help de-dollarization through the multilateral payments platform called BRICS Bridge. Ariel says that a huge storm is expected. Has the banking crisis of 2024 begun? Asks Michael Snyder. The Fed board announced that banks would not issue any loans on March 11th. They want, or it warned, that more banks would get into trouble, and we didn't even have to wait until March 11th for the action to begin. As of Wednesday morning, shares of Community Bank of New York have plummeted 45% to new 30-year lows. The president of the Fed, Jerome Powell, predicted this March 7 more bank failures in 2024, mainly among small and medium-sized lenders. Broad reform looms for the end of Basel III. Powell said Wednesday that the central bank and other regulators will make significant changes to a controversial plan to increase capital requirements for big banks. Washington's list of troubled banks grew again last quarter, capping a year in which lenders struggled to cope with higher interest rates and more past due loans for commercial buildings and credit cards. Real estate lending at banks is weighing on investors' minds since revelation of problems at New York Community Bank Corp in late January sent shares of regional banks tumbling. An unexpected round of bank closures comes to Florida. Some of the largest banks announcing the closure of 12 branches in Florida include Wells Fargo and Bank of America. Banks filed notices to close a total of 1,566 branches last year. Despite the push for digital banking, many customers prefer to conduct their transactions in a physical location, especially the older generation. There is a risk that continued bank branch closures could lead to what are known as banking deserts, where smaller towns may have to travel further to meet their banking needs and negatively impact communities. Saudi Arabia and Russia to cut oil production as Germany plans desperate economic rescue. This is pushing the global economy into a recession by keeping energy prices high. However, the biggest loser is the Eurozone. Golden fever. Gold rush on Wall Street. Gold enthusiasts are rejoicing that their favorite precious metal continues to reach new heights. Gold hit a record high this week as investors continue to bet that the Fed will cut rates in the second half of the year. Gold is considered one of the most resilient investments. When interest rates fall, holding income-producing assets like bonds become less attractive than owning the precious metal, However, some investors believe that gold is a hedge against inflation and are betting that it will maintain its value even if it starts to rise. It is not just traders who are trying to join the gold rush. Costco began selling gold bars last September and sold more than $1,000 million during its fiscal first quarter of 2024. The precious metal tends to be popular during times of global economic unrest, and it is a tangible and less risky asset than the actions. Economy. Credit card debt jumps to a new all-time high as rates high to a new record. Robert Kiyosaki believes that not buying Bitcoin is the biggest mistake you can make, in quotes. Warren Buffett says he wouldn't pay $25 for all the Bitcoin in the world. He considers cryptocurrencies as rat poison and warns, "I can say with almost certainty that they will have a bad end." Bernie Sanders reveals that more than half of seniors survive on less than $30,000 a year. Citizens deserve to retire with dignity, but the current system does not allow it, he said. News. Breaking news. The destroyed submarine cables in the Red Sea affect the entire world. The damage suffered by the cables, which transmitted 25% of the Internet's data, is forcing companies to redirect traffic to avoid a massive outage of the Internet grid. The largest object launched from the International Space Station threatens to hit Germany. German authorities are preparing for the possible fall of 2.5 tons of space debris from a platform launched 3 years ago. USA. The US takes the first step to ban TikTok. The social network claims that its ban would deprive millions of citizens of their constitutional right to freedom of speech. George Clooney surprised 14 of his best friends with $1 million in cash each. Elizabeth Warren believes that it is time to legalize marijuana. California takes steps to expand interest-free home loan program for illegal immigrants. Leaked hacking files raise concerns that China will weaken US for war. Chinese electric cars leave their American rivals behind. 10% of Biden voters say they are switching to Trump. New York City mobilizes 1,000 National Guard soldiers in the subway. Elon Musk wants that illegal immigration could cause something much worse than 9/11, in quotes. Europe. The euro falls after the ECB lowers its inflation forecasts for 2024-5 for 2%. To 2%, I mean. Sweden officially joins NATO, ending decades of neutrality. Massive cancellation of flights and trains in Germany due to a strike. With the EU ban the repair of cars over 50 years old, will the EU? It's a question. Macron continues to increase French involvement in the conflict in Ukraine. Russia is preparing for a war against NATO, according to Lithuania. NATO is rehearsing a possible military confrontation with Russia, according to Moscow. Moscow would respond in the same way if the West would confiscate Russian assets. He calls it a trade war and economic aggression. The EU is estimated to hold some $300 billion in Russian central bank assets, along with its G7 allies, including the US, Japan, and Canada. Trade between China and Russia increased 9.3% year-on-year in the first 2 months of 2024. Americas. Mexico consolidates itself as a leader in export to the US and breaks the record in January 2024. The IMF advocates that Argentina's government adjustment not fall on the most vulnerable. Crocodile tears, I ask. Ecuador produces less oils and begin to worry. Future. The Siberian shaman Kolya revealed the future in 2024. He predicts a good economic evolution of Russia. In quotes, production will develop. Those factories that have not been remembered since Soviet times will begin to operate, and this will be the delight of the people. We can say that Russia will spread its wings. However, he continues, cataclysms are not excluded. All over the world, there is now more bad than good. The proportion is approximately 60 to 40%. Hence, all the natural disasters that affect the world. In quotes, we need to pay attention to the environment, people's livelihoods, and the birth rate. But most importantly, we need to understand that what signals the earth itself is giving us: volcanic eruptions, floods, storms, and tidal waves. And let us also pay attention to the fact that the continents themselves have begun to move, and the layers begin to rise, says the shaman Kolya. The next 12 months could become a time for humanity to reconsider its actions, tend towards nature, and conserve the environment. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.